terrible. It is something that will be visited with the wrath of God. We know about the present fast popular Valentine Day. Valentine Day was not popular before, but it is gaining popularity the world over. Is it true? And the many churches are bringing it into the church now. Many Pentecostal churches are now celebrating Valentine Day. Originally, Valentine Day was imported from paganism into the Roman Catholic Church also. It was imported into the Roman Catholic Church from paganism. If you also want to know, the things are available in the internet. The history books have it. These things are things that you can find out for yourself. The Valentine Day is not a Christian thing at all. The Valentine Day takes its root in an ancient Roman festival, the festival of Lupercalia. Lupercalia, that's the festival that Valentine Day derived from. It is a festival in honor of the goddess of fertility. The goddess of fertility. It is a celebration that was commemorated annually in the ancient world on February 15, not 14. It started on February 15. But when it was adopted into the church by Pope Gelasius I, Pope Gelasius brought the Valentine Day into the church in the year 496 AD. These are historical facts. He brought it into the church, and it became a Christian feast day. Now, he declared February 14, not 15, brought it to 14 as St. Valentine's Day. There is no consensus, there is no agreement as to why it was called Valentine. Because in ancient Rome, the things they are doing on February 14 was being done on February 15. All the things, the festivities, the activities were done on February 15 in the festival they call the Festival of Lupercalia, the goddess of fertility. Now, there are three legends or myths, three different kinds of story that people have documented in history concerning why it now, instead of Lupercalia, it now was renamed Valentine. The one story had it that there were three Valentine priests and the personalities within the Roman Catholic Church that had their activities, had their church work, and both of the three of them died or were martyred on February 14. The three Valentine personalities. One was a priest that was in charge of a parish in Rome. The other Valentine was a bishop in charge of the diocese of Temi. The third one was a missionary in Africa. Now, the story had it that in different years as they lived, these three Valentine personalities of the church were killed on February 14, each of them. So, Pope Gelasius, when he now proclaimed February 14, the Valentine Day, he shifted all the festivities of February 15 to 14 in honor of these three Valentines. That is one school of thought, one line of the story. Another school of thought said that a priest named Valentine, who lived around 240 AD, remember, Pope Gelasius I proclaimed this Valentine Day by the year 496 AD. Now, by 270 AD, one priest named Valentine, this is another line of the story, went on wedding young boys and girls in defiance of the emperor's order. The emperor had decreed, Emperor Claudius had decreed that marriages would no longer be celebrated or enacted between young boys and girls. That he wanted to use the young boys to serve in his army as soldiers to fight his numerous wars, so that when they get discharged from the army, they can now come home and marry. But this very priest, Valentine, defied the order of Emperor Claudius. He defied his order and secretly went on wedding young boys and girls who wanted to marry, because they had love for each other. He was secretly wedding them until the day he was caught. And when he was caught, he was in prison. And from prison, he was killed. So that is another line of thought. Another school of thought said that is how Valentine's Day began. It now was proclaimed by Pope Gelasius I in 496 AD in honor of that priest, Valentine, who died in 270 AD in this circumstance. That's another school of thought. Now, some other person now said that while Valentine was imprisoned by Emperor Claudius, he kept him under the custody of a jailer, just like the Philippian jailer was giving Paul to keep custody of. You remember? So somebody was given to keep custody of Valentine, the priest, when Emperor Claudius caught him, going contrary to the law he has made. While in that prison custody, the story has it that this priest fell in love with the daughter of the jailer. And that daughter of the man that was keeping charge over the priest, was also in love with him. They became boyfriend and girlfriend. And on the eve of the day, they were to now execute the priest for disobeying the emperor, that he wrote a love letter to that girl, the daughter of the jailer that he had fallen in love with. He wrote a love letter to her and ended the letter with these words, this phrase, "From your Valentine." So, in this story, while the emperor was to kill him, he had now established a kind of phrase, a kind of slang for lovers. That is why they now call it Lovers' Day. Is somebody understanding? These are the stories surrounding the Valentine Day, how it originated. So the priest had a girlfriend and was writing love letter. And then it is now celebrating his love affair with the daughter of the jailer that the people are doing every February 14th. That is that line of the story. Now the third myth is that a poet, a British poet named Chaucer, composed a poem, that's another line, in honor of the wedding engagement or marriage engagement between the King of England, King Richard II, and the fiancée Anne of Bohemia. He said that the royal engagement took place in a place called the Parliament of Fowls. The Parliament of Fowls, Fouls, fowl. chicken, fowls. The gathering together of fowls. That was what that place was called, where they had the engagement. And that it took place on February 14. And that day is a period when many birds, many fowls come into that place to mate. Each one with his mate, one male, one female, and they were mating. And it was on that, during that season, and in that place, that arena, where the King of England now had his engagement ceremony with the one he wanted to marry, Anne. As a result of that, the fowls of the air were mating on February 14. And the King of England was choosing and engaging his wife February 14. So it became a day to celebrate. So when people are celebrating February 14 in line with this myth, in line with this historical origin, people adduce as to how Valentine Day started, it means they are celebrating the mating of fowls. So they themselves now, as fowls, will also come together to now send the love letter and the cards to one another. The fowls of the air come together and met on February 14, and the fowls of the earth, human beings, also want to celebrate February 14. What an irony. Now, Valentine Day continued from these various sources until in the 18th century, the Valentine Day now became more elaborate. It entered into America, and they began to now exchange handmade greeting cards. The greeting cards for Valentine Day were handcrafted. People would design it with their hand, put ribbon on it, and we send to loved ones and all that. In the 1850s, it was one lady, one university graduate named Esther Howland, that now began to produce those cards in mass. She began to mass produce them, and people began to buy to send to their loved ones. Originally, each person would design his own, put ribbon, put any design of his choice, and give to whosoever he wants. But this lady now began to mass produce the cards, and eventually it became a big business. That today there is an association of greeting card manufacturers in the US. And in their official statistical release, they said that every year, Valentine cards constitute a whopping 25% of all the cards sold in America. It has become so popular that 1/4 of all the cards sold are sold on Valentine Day. It becomes a worldwide festivity, and very many people have fallen for it. But remember, the original celebration of festivity is in honor of the god of fertility in pagan idol worship. It is only evolving. It is only evolving. And it has reached this point where many people that don't know about the origin are now involved. And before you know it, people will be sending text message, Happy Valentine Day, Happy Valentine Day. And they will be sending some, cards and all that. And there are some people here that have done that before. Is it true? If you have done that before, just raise up your hand. Now, Now, listen. Now, as you put down your hand, put that your hand on your chest and say, Lord, have mercy on me. I did it in ignorance. I did it in ignorance. I never knew it had idolatrous origin. I never knew. Lord, have mercy. Forgive me. I won't do it again. Listen, we are talking about youths that are informed, youths that have knowledge, youths that know God and know the mind of God, youths that are strange in this strange generation. When you know the truth will set you free. Festivities. That is how very many pagan festivities have entered the church today. Somebody here mentioned, when we were listing the festivities, he mentioned New Yam Festival. Am I right? Today, New Yam Festival has been brought into the church, and it has become a Christian occasion. It is now an occasion where they do harvest and Thanksgiving and all that. They have christened it. But that one is not the pagan Rome now. This one is happening in our communities. The New Yam Festival is a festival in honor of the God of harvest, the God of yam. Are they listening? Now, it needs to be told that if error lasts for 1,000 years, it is still error. This thing we talked about, Valentine, started, it was officially brought in as a celebration in the church as far back as 496 AD. Remove 496 from 2016. You will see that it's almost 2,000 years ago. About 1,600 and something years ago. Yet, error is error. If it was Satan that was being honored that time, it is still Satan. 1,600 and something years after, that is still honored. Because God has no business in it. New Yam Festival. There are several of those things. Birthdays. Birthdays. The first birthday that was recorded in the scripture was the birthday that who kept? Herod kept. During that birthday, the prophet of God, John the Baptist, was beheaded. Because it was celebration, for pleasure, for dancing, for orgies, for all manner of enjoyment. The daughter of Herodias danced so seductively, she danced so sexily, she danced and gyrated her waist and her chest and everything and mesmerized the people that the king opened his mouth and promised even half of his kingdom. You can imagine that. He was so dazed. He was so mesmerized. He promised up to half of his kingdom. And the little girl went to the mother. You know the story. The mother that had been rebuked by John the Baptist. And Herod had put him in prison because he rebuked Herod also for wickedness and for his unrighteousness. He now went and told him how he should behead the head of John and give to her in a saucer. Even though Herod was sorry about that kind of open check he gave to the girl. But because he made that promise with an oath, he had to go and send soldiers to go and cut off the head of John the Baptist, the servant of God, and give to the girl, just because of birthday celebration. The book of Ecclesiastes says, the day of a man's death is better than the day of his birth. it is necessary that we understand that the things God has spoken are things that we should lay to heart. Now, listen to me. If there is any celebration Jesus commanded us, is the celebration of his death. And if any person wants to celebrate his own life, he should celebrate his own death. Did you hear what I said? Instead of celebrating your birthday, if you must celebrate your death day. Celebrate the day you died. Are you asking me how? You are asking me how? Turn to the book of Romans chapter 6. Romans 6:1. Are you there? What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer in it? Know ye not that as many of us as we are baptized into Jesus Christ, we are baptized into his death? Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. When you rejected sin in your life, when you confessed sin and you never went back to it again, you died. You died to sin. You died to the world. You died to Satan. You died to yourself. And when somebody is dead, he needs to be buried. Is it true? That's why the ordinance of baptism was given, so that the person that is dead could be buried. And because if you are buried with inside the earth and the earth covers you, you may not survive, because it is a symbolic action to show the spiritual reality that has taken place in your life. That when you gave your life to Christ, you have actually died to the world. You have died to sin. You have died to Satan. You have died to self. To symbolize it, you now need to be buried, because every dead person needs to be buried. And the grave that is chosen is a temporary grave, the water, so that you can be buried in it. You can also come out. Praise the Lord. So if you want to celebrate the day you died. That is the day Jesus Christ told us to celebrate his own death day. That's what he gave us to celebrate. So if you are a child of God here, you need to know the day you became a child of God. That day is the day you died to sin. That day is the day you died to Satan. That day is the day you died to the world. That day is the day you died to yourself. You are no longer living to yourself. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. And of course, if you die to the world, to the banqueting, to eating and drinking, to pleasure seeking, if you want to celebrate the day you died, you will not revive the pleasure seeking that day. Am I right? You won't revive it. You will rather have it a solemn period to look into your life, to take stock. How far, whether since you were buried, whether one of your hands have come up. Huh? You know, when somebody buries himself, one of his hands will come up. But if you are dead through, another people will bury you. And they will bury you full. No hand will come up. You want to take stock of your life. The things you rejected, have some of them begun to crop up? It is a time of fasting and praying. It is a time of seeking the face of God. It is a time of thanksgiving to him for bringing you thus far in the race. It is a time of committing the race of your days into his hand. That is the day to be celebrated. But many people are going the way of Herod and Herodias. Birthday. That is what is reigning. That is what is reigning for the world. Go to the pages of newspapers. You see birthday celebration. And I hear some people talk about, after all, that our daddy, the GS, wanted to celebrate his 70th birthday. But you know that it was a special thing that could have helped to launch the Voice of the Watchman TV. It was a day of a special announcement by the person who was born on the day that Noah's Ark rested on Mount Ararat. You know that the Ark of Noah, the Ark of salvation for the then world, it rested, it became secure on the mountain called Ararat on July 17th. And that was the day the man of God was born. That was the day he came into this world and he was brought in. Listen. That was what he wanted to use the 70th year to tell the world. That there was a man that was brought into this world on the day that Noah's Ark rested on Mount Ararat. And God has given him a message for the world. That is what he wanted to give. It was not to be a day of feasting. It was not to be a day of giving gifts or